admitting another parent. Thank you for joining us. And I think with that being said, I'd say let's go ahead and start.
Okay. Well, I just want to kind of reiterate what Mr. Scheidler said. Like, we are very thankful that you guys took the time to come and listen to what we have to say, because it is important, and we know your time is valuable, so we really appreciate that. This is my first time sharing a screen, so I'm going to move the slide. Did it move for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so basically we just kind of want to go over why we're doing the IRead. It's designed to measure basic reading skills and reading comprehension from 2nd grade. So it's really not anything that they've learned in 3rd grade, but things we've, re-hit on, but stuff they've really started learning in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. I have taught kindergarten in the past, and these like beginning sounds and ending sounds and vowel sounds are things we start learning in kindergarten. So I know like a big state test can be scary, but also this one is just the kind of just like the basic knowledge that they have for reading. And who participates in the IRead? So all 3rd graders enrolled in an accredited Indiana school will participate, and we're doing it on the morning of March 9th and 10th. It's not just 3rd graders. There will be kids in other grades taking it, and Mr. Scheidler will go into more details about why that is here in a second, but it is all 3rd graders, so it's something like we're all been working on together, and we have a common goal, and so we're excited to see what they all know. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Mr. Scheidler to talk about what happens if they don't pass the IRead test. But again, we're hoping that with everything that they've learned in kindergarten through 2nd and the added support and practice that we've been doing this year, like they really should be okay.
And, and thank you, Atlanta. Again, here's what I would say. It's a mandate that every 3rd grader will take this assessment. We don't like it. This is pushed down by the State House. It's a way for accountability. Schools, it's one of the measuring tools that schools are judged against. I will tell you, historically, we have anywhere from 86 to about 98% of our kids on any given year who have passed IRead. I think we've even had a year where every eligible kid passed IRead on the very first time. So again, this is like that the delicate balance that we try to, we don't want to scare the kids, but I will tell you, we've had a few occurrences where kids are arrogant or cocky when they sit there and they just kind of quickly click, 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 click. Next thing you know, they're done, and the scores come out and they failed by 3 points. And those baffle us just as much as the kids who we think maybe won't cut it, but they do cut it. But again, it's a very small number of kids. You've got a crew here, your teachers here that have worked really hard. They've actually kind of been making this part of what their daily activities with Orton Gillingham and some of the different phonics things they're doing, the reading comprehension. I guess what I would stress to you, and I think they're going to do it, is just to make sure the kids are rested and they take their time and they don't rush through it. Anyway, all right. So basically what happens if your kid does not pass the IRead test? Well, they get a score, they don't pass. Okay. We're going to look at that data, and there's a couple of outcomes that could come from that. The state would say you should probably consider retaining the kid. Well, I think retention is something that could be considered. However, there's not a lot of documentation or research that says retention is a strong indicator. It actually reverses itself, and it's a negative thing when they're age 14, 15, 16. When we do reading instruction, our reading instruction typically is aimed at the student's reading level. So if your child does not pass, we'll look at different options. Retention is one. It's not our go-to. So I sit here and I tell you, we're not going to say, well, your kid failed by 3 points, therefore they're retained. We'll look at different data points because, again, we're not just about this test and I learn. We're about a multitude of assessment points or data points. We'll take a lot of different things in play, but your kid could be retained. it could be an indicator along with other data points that we need to look into some other options for your child. If your child does not pass IRead, your child will need to come to school, summer school. That's for sure. They'll have to retake the assessment. Again, I would say if a kid retakes the assessment, this is what that means. This means they've had exposure to the assessment. They're going to have a better idea of what's on there. And I would say 99% of the time, those kids who retake the test, they pass it. So again, I don't want anyone, oh my gosh, no, it's fine. Kids don't need that anxiety. Parents don't need that anxiety. My teachers don't need that anxiety. The principal doesn't need that anxiety. So that's basically it. There are some kids in, believe it or not, there are a couple of fifth graders who have to take it. Part of that is complicated by the pandemic because they couldn't take it last year in fourth grade, and they didn't have it in the summer school. So it was kind of a mess, but we're trying to clean it up. So we got a couple of older fifth graders that will take it in a small group of their own. And I'm 100% confident each of them will take it and they will pass it. It's kind of a minimal reading test, phonics, comprehension, and we're going to go over some examples. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'd like to say again, if you haven't done this, if you're online and you can go to the chat box, there's a Google form. If you could complete it, it's just basically us having an attendance of who came. If you're on the phone, I mean, if you think of it, if you want to email me and say, hey, you know, Bill, I was unable to do the form, but I was there on the phone. Would you enter me? I'll just enter you. It's not a big deal. So thank you very much.
Okay. So like Mr. Schuyler said, we're going to run through just kind of what will be assessed and some examples of questions that they might see. So foundations in reading, we got vocabulary, word analysis, synonyms, antonyms, suffixes, homographs, context clues, and beginning sounds, which some of those are really big words and it might seem kind of scary, but when you break it down and look at the questions, they are things that the kids really should do pretty well on. So an example that we've been working on in class, like this exact kind of question is, look at the words for number 1. Find the word that has the same beginning sound as grass. Fill in the circle that goes with the answer you choose. So here's where the kid might look really quick, then just see a G and be like, oh, grass, G, yeah, and fill in their answer. But all those G's don't make the same sound, and it's the GR that goes together to make that sound. So we've been just talking about slowing down, going through each answer choice and making the best choice. For ending sounds, it's the same thing. So find the word that has the same ending sound as rain. Okay, so they might see a word that ends in E, and they're going to be like, oh, that's not it because that doesn't end in N. Well, done makes that N sound at the end. So really just kind of like slowing down and not just going with their first guess and looking at the words. We actually have a packet that we've been going through that has these questions worded the exact same. So they've been practicing it for a couple of weeks every single day. Vowel sounds, the students read silently the word in bold and choose the word that has the same vowel sound as the underlined part of the word. Here's another one where they might see that A and they just pick the one with the vowel sound A. Here, all of them have an A in them. That won't always be the case. There might be words that have A's, vowels that are E's, and then they just see one A, they might choose that as the answer, but they really need to go through each word. A makes 2 different sounds. You have to say the words to hear if it's the long A or the short A. Again, things that they can easily do, but sometimes we just go really fast and it makes us not get the right answer.
Is this a timed?
Yes.
It is timed.
It is timed. The timed part, well, all 3 segments are timed, but we do like walk through and like we give the directions and then they do an answer for one part, and then during other parts it's free, not like free, but like they're working at their own pace. Okay, so synonyms. choose the word that means the same or about the same as the underlined word. So they're looking at sad and they're trying to find the word that means the same or about the same as sad. One thing that I've noticed with my class, at least as we're going through these practice problems, is sometimes like they know what same means or they know what opposite means, but they're just like see one that's either the same or opposite and they're like, oh, that's the opposite. But then when you go back and look at the question, it was like, oh, it actually asked for the same. So they know the answer. They just got a little quick, which I know is hard when some of these questions seem so easy. You just want to go, but that's how they get you. And then antonyms, choose the word that means the opposite of the underlined word. So opposite of give, they would have to look through there and find the word that means the opposite. Homographs, read the sentences, then choose the word that correctly completes both sentences. So one word will fit in both of those blanks. So we've been working a lot on this just because like some words, they're like, it's a little tricky. Like we had blue as one of our examples, and a lot of the kids didn't know that another way to use blue was if you're sad. So that made that a little bit tricky. Or bear, that the bear is the animal, or the backpack was hard to bear. So definitely just like we've been working on those words that sometimes we might know that, not know what that other meaning is. And also just going through and putting the words in the sentence and asking yourself, does that make sense? And making sure it fits and makes sense in both of the sentences. Suffixes, find the word that has the suffix and only the suffix underlined. We've been working on suffixes a lot and just knowing like they come at the end of the word, prefixes become at the beginning, and really trying to hit home on what those suffixes mean. Because, for example, quicker, ER would be a suffix, but it's not the only thing that's underlined. So that could be a quick, easy mistake where they say ER is underlined and they mark it, but there's too much that's underlined. So being able to know what those suffixes are to be able to pick them out in those words. And context clues. For numbers 8 and 9, read the story. For each of the blanks, there's a list of words with the same number. Choose the word from each list that best completes the meaning of the story. So again, this is another one where you've got to really read the sentence. And we actually had like a really good lesson on this today. One of my kids, like out of nowhere, was like, the answer's in the sentence. And I was like, yes, like the light bulb went off, that they knew that they could figure out what that word is that's supposed to go in there by listening to the whole sentence. So we just can't read like the beginning and not read the whole thing, but read the whole sentence, find which word. I even suggest putting in every single word into the sentence. And even if you think that like the first answer is right, still putting in all the other choices to see which one sounds the best. So those are some examples of questions that they will see on IRead next week. And then Mrs. Kitchell is going to go over some more.
All right, so just another example of a type of question they might see. So there will also be a comprehension component where they're either going to have to read a nonfiction passage or a fictional passage. So here, for example, they're reading the story titled Snowhopper. So they would read through this whole story. We highly recommend that they always read everything more than once. So read this passage twice, and then there are 2 questions that follow up. So first question asking about a context clue question. So still asking about what a word from the story means. So in this case, looking at number 10, we'd expect them to go back into the story and find where the word certain was in the passage and read around it. So read that paragraph once again, and then go back to the question. And this one actually says which of these words means the opposite. So really 2 levels of thinking there. First, they have to find certain, figure out what certain means. And then they have to think, okay, what they're asking here is not what does certain mean, but which of these words means the opposite. So kind of 2 levels of thinking happening there. And then another question to go with the passage, they're asking which of these sentences from the passage best tells where snow fleas search for food. So they'd have to go back into the passage and think, what did they say that proved how they search for food. So that is a type of question they will see. So that kind of wraps up the types of questions they will see between what Mrs. Bender and what I talked about. And then this section is just about what we are doing at school to help prepare, and then what you guys can be doing at home, which, to be honest, we want to really make sure you guys know that this is not something they need to be studying for. As Mrs. Bender said at the beginning, these are skills they should have learned or have been practicing since kindergarten up to second grade. So they should. You might be thinking, do they know what synonyms are? But they should. We've talked about synonyms a lot, antonyms a lot. So not something we want you to necessarily be studying with them for, but just a couple of things you can be doing while you're reading with them to practice. So one of the things they're really trying to test with this IRead assessment is phonemic awareness. So that's recognizing and using individual sounds to create words. So that's kind of those beginning, ending sound, vowel sound questions. So what we've been doing is doing a lot of practice problems, really sounding words out. I mean, they've once again been doing that since kindergarten. So some things you can do at home. This says you could help clap the beats or syllables in words, so help them recognize that one word has multiple sounds within it. Ask your child about beginning and ending sounds. So you're talking about a certain word, or they say something, and you could ask them, what's the beginning sound on that? Or what's the ending sound on that? Just kind of a quick verbal quiz. And then create rhymes and read rhyming words. So that kind of helps with that. Really the whole beginning, middle, and ending sound recognition. Another thing they're testing with this test is phonics. So that's understanding the relationship between written letters and spoken sound. So that's just seeing the word on the page and being able to know, okay, M says and figuring out that word. So some good things to do is just listen to your child read as they're sounding out the words that they don't know. Does it seem like they're familiar with the letter sounds, which once again, they will be. And then another thing that I hear from parents a lot or I see a lot is when their child struggles with a word, they're struggling to get through a sentence, just immediately telling them what it is. So they come up to you, they ask, what is this word? You tell them what it is. But the problem with that is it isn't a learning experience. Now they just know that if they bring a word to you, you'll tell them what it is. So instead of doing that, avoid immediately telling them. Help them instead decode that larger word by breaking it into smaller chunks. So say, what is the beginning sound? What is the middle sound? And then help them blend it all together. So just a good example. Or have them read the sentence again and think, okay, what do I know about context clues? They're mentioning they're mentioning something in the later part of the sentence that could help me figure out what that word means. So just some things to keep in mind. And then also, one more. Sure. Encourage your child to point to words and say them out loud when reading. And then another thing to be working with them at home is reading fluency. So this is just kind of the way they read out loud. So being able to read at a good pace. I always say that I think fluency is really connected to comprehension, because you can imagine if you were reading one word every 20 seconds, it's going to be hard to put together the meaning of that sentence. So really encouraging them to read out loud, making sure that they're reading at a good pace while they're doing that. And then I also recommend that you aren't afraid to have them read the same book again or the same passage again. I know that can seem repetitive and you're like, they need to be reading something new, but that repetitive reading is great for fluency. So if they have a favorite book that they've read out loud 20 times, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they're working on that word recognition and reading at a good pace. Another thing that the test will be assessing is vocabulary development. So you saw they're asking what words mean, what the synonyms and antonyms are for those words. So just talk with your child about daily events. Share just those conversations, bring up new vocabulary, just exposes them to new things. Have conversations with them about their day, about your day, and then search for new words and texts with your child. So as they're reading, if they come across the word and they say, what does that mean? Instead of just one, you could tell them that still is helping them, but you could also look it up online, help them find the definition, just showing them how to widen their vocabulary. And then help your child learn new vocabulary based on hobbies or interests. So once again, just talking about that stuff makes a world of difference. And then finally, reading comprehension strategies. So these are just the strategies they use to communicate what is being read. So being able to read a passage and then tell you what they read. So summarize. Some things you can do is you can just ask them questions about what they read. You can say, what do you think will happen next? What do you predict will happen next? Ask the who, what, when, where, when, and why questions. So who are the characters? Why did they do that? Where are they in this story? Ask your child questions about the topic of the book before they start reading it. So maybe they're reading a book about penguins. Ask them, what do you know about penguins? Ask your child what the main idea or the message of the book is. So that's a really good summarizing skill, saying, okay, you just read that book, but what did you read? And then that's kind of it. Are there any questions you guys have after?
Hey, if I could go ahead, I'm just going to piggyback here. Brandy, congratulations. You're the first one to be able to complete that Google form. I had 2 parents who emailed me to say, hey, I can't do the form because of how I'm doing this tonight, and that's fine. I just want to add the people who are here. If you can go in the chat and click on the hyperlink for the Google form, it's the very top chat thing. It'll go. It's a real simple thing. We just will keep that information for our own records in case we ever need it. And again, when I say need it, we just came off of an audit and they ask about, you know, what are you doing to get parents involved and stuff. So it's that kind of stuff. And we will share this, the Google form for attendance. Natasha, are you able to scroll up to see the link up there? Or do I need to copy it again? I see them. I can do it. Let me just.
If they join after the link is shared, it goes away.
There, I just dumped it again. So I'm Bryce, I wonder if you can see it now because I just dumped it in there. Or if you guys email me, or I think the chat remains part of the video. So I believe I'll see that too. So again, no one's going to get in trouble if you don't fill the Google form out or if you don't email me. So anyway, yeah, and the teachers will process this video and send it out again and let people know it's about 25 minutes of good content before the principal rambles on to finish it up.
I have a quick question. They said it's timed, which is totally fine. I've noticed with our e-learning at home that sometimes he rushes through it because he thinks he gets free time. Is there a non-incentive so that they don't rush? I mean, they don't get free time if there's built-in extra time or whatever, or what's the approach with that?
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say was they're pretty short assessments. There's 3 in all, and they're like anywhere from 15 to 23 minutes each, if I recall. Does that seem about right, Lane?
One is 12 and 2 are 30.
Yeah. So, and they won't get rewards like, you know, if you're done early, you get to. But you're exactly right. I think that's the thing that surprises me is when you have, you know, 9 out of every 10 kids pass, which isn't surprising. It's about the state average, 86, 87, 88%. You know, we're usually in the low 90s. It's usually what surprises us is are sometimes the kids who hurry through and they don't pass, and you're like, that doesn't match the other data points. But again, that's the problem with 8, 9-year-olds. You know, getting them to understand to take their time. So again, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for having that conversation with your kid. I promise you there won't be one teacher that will say, as quickly as you get done, please go and do your favorite online computer game. They're actually in what's called a lockdown browser, and the kids now are limited in what they can actually access on their computer, a new tool that our teachers and parents have, but that's a whole other story.
They can also go back and check. So I have a feeling a lot of us will say, you can't finish the test until the time is up. Like, go back to number 1, check your answers carefully. Because, yeah, 30 minutes isn't long. So we'll probably encourage double and triple checking.
And I don't know how many of my parents I have on here, but we've actually been practicing that in other tests we've been taking. I usually don't let them hit submit until the time is up anyways. I just think it's good practice for them to go back, read each answer choice they selected to make sure it is the best one. So if I have anybody on here that's in my class, I can assure you I do not let them hit submit most times until the time limit is up. So.
Any other questions?
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you again for coming. We know that this was time out of your evening and you are all very busy, but we do appreciate you taking the time to come and learn about what the test is about and being invested in your child's education.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mhm.